virtual launch, and we're very excited. And it's actually quite fitting that our first virtual event that we're doing, of course, with all the changes that we've experienced so far this year, and that it be about electric vehicles. So first off, we want to just say thank you again, and we hope that each and every single one of you who have chosen to take the time to join us today are safe and are healthy and are spending your time with friends and family who are also in good health. And again, welcome to our virtual launch of our electric vehicle community, our newest initiative here at El Paso Electric. We're very excited that this virtual launch event is actually part of the National Drive Electric Vehicle Week, which is celebrating its 10th year with Plug in America. It's very interesting that we've only been celebrating National Drive EV for 10 years, when you'll learn in just a moment how long EVs have been around. But speaking of being around, I would like to go ahead and kick things off with our newest community member and our newest team member to El Paso Electric, our Chief Executive Officer, and she has brought so much drive and passion for innovation. She is definitely someone that we're very excited to work with, and when we talked to her about this event, she could not be any happier to be part of this and to welcome each and every one of you. So to our newest community member and our newest Chief Executive Officer, I now have Kelly A. Tomlin joining us. Kelly?
Thank you. Thank you, Javier. I'm so excited to be a part of this. I'm embarrassed to say, although I've driven an electric car for years, I didn't even know there was an official National Drive Electric Week. So it's been going on for 10 years, and I didn't know that. And I'm excited just to continue to lead this passion that our company has had for promoting and advocating and facilitating electric and plug-in hybrid vehicles. So I didn't know, too, that we had a website since 2018 that serves as a resource for how we can charge our cars, information about those. So I know we're going to continue to build on that. And I know that we celebrated this year as a country with EEI, 1 million vehicles on the road, EV vehicles. So it's an exciting time, I think, for this mode of transportation. And as we continue to look for ways to electrify our own fleet, I'm excited to bring my Tesla down here. I'm having my husband drive it from Chicago, and I love to tell this story when I ordered my Tesla after having driven a Leaf and a Mitsubishi before, both in Jamaica and the U.S., how I think the vehicles have evolved over time. I remember in 2004 when I first got my hybrid, which wasn't a plug-in, but I was so excited about that. It was a Lexus Highlander, Toyota Highlander and a Lexus. And everyone thought it was so cool it didn't make any noise. That was the extent of that. And then over the years, I've just watched as the distance they can go get longer, the excitement about driving them. I have a Tesla Model 3, and it's behind me and not real, but we'll be here. And I remember my kids being so, disappointed that I was getting this little white car with white seats that they thought would have no power. And when I first put them in the car and pushed down the gas, they were so impressed with it that I think I've almost convinced them that this is the car they should have going forward. But I'm just so proud of how it helps us use the investment that our customers have paid for our electric grid. So if we charge our cars at night when our load is low, that helps us take advantage of a resource that we already have. So I'm just a big advocate, so happy to be here. One of my favorite features of my car is that I'm a big pet lover, and I'm always have my dogs in the car. And yes, that white interior does come clean. It wipes off very easily. I have two big boys, one 15 and one 23, and they love to play sports. So people thought I was crazy when I got it, but it wipes clean as new. But it also has a feature that when you leave your dog in the car, because sometimes you have to, it does keep the car cool. And a big sign comes on that says, hey, my owner will be back soon. The temperature is 74. The air conditioner's on. Don't worry about me, something like that. So I think the innovation the electric vehicle and the plug-in hybrid vehicle industry is bringing is just great. And finally, before I go, because I could talk about it all day, I want to give a big thanks to the members of our communication team, Eddie in particular, who gave up his hybrid when I got here so I could drive it. And if you see me running around town, I'm driving the plug-in hybrid. It's got EP all over it. In prior years when I drove a car, it always said powered by the electric company. And so when you see my little white Tesla going around and it says powered by EPE, you'll know it's me. So thank you. Happy to be a part of this event. I'm excited for it. Javier, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Kelly. That's awesome. I'm actually really happy to hear about that, especially about the white interior, because I have my personal eyes on a Tesla. Although there are a huge selection of EVs nowadays, and it's only growing. But I do have my eyes on a white Tesla with white interior, and so it's good to hear that it's good to clean. So thank you again, Kelly, for joining us. We really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll be hearing more from you on this initiative and many other initiatives that our company here is pursuing. So we're gonna go ahead and actually, as I mentioned earlier, we've been celebrating National Drive EV for 10 years now with Plug-in America, and it's hard to believe that it's only been a decade, because right here we're going to be learning a little history about electric vehicles, and we have our very own team member and newest member and engineer with the Renewables and Emerging Technologies Department, James Pleasant. So James, I'll go ahead and pass it on over to you for a drive-through through the history of EVs.
Good afternoon, everybody. Like previously mentioned, my name is James Pleasant II. I'm an engineer with the Renewables and Emerging Technology Department. So let's dive into a little bit of history about electric vehicles. So first, to get started about electric vehicles, we actually have to go back about 200 years. Who would have thought, right? I was a little surprised when I first found out that they've been around for quite some time. So the first electric vehicle models were built simultaneously in both Europe and in the U.S. about through the 1820s and the 1840s. No one knows exactly who was the first to invent them or when it was exactly built, but we do have evidence bringing back all the way about 200 years. So, but please keep in mind, these are actually prototypes just because the first rechargeable batteries did not become available until 1859. Continuing into the late 1800s, in 1884, we finally got the first practical production of rechargeable EVs. And they reached their peak in 1897 when the electric vehicle company was founded with more than 600 electric cabs and services. And a quick fun fact, they actually had a little hub where they'd go and they would replace the battery every time it needed to be charged. And if you see in the bottom right corner, you could see the first vehicle to ever break the 60-mile-per-hour barrier, and the 100-kilometer-per-hour barrier, was actually an electric vehicle called the Never Satisfied. Moving into the 1900s, Ferdinand Porsche presented the first hybrid car. But unfortunately, in 1908, mass production of the Ford Model T caused a huge decline in public interest for electric vehicles. Unfortunately, at this time, electricity was not publicly available to most people in the States. So whenever the gasoline vehicle became around very popular in 1908, there was a huge decline in electric vehicles. Please keep in mind that 1 out of every 3 vehicles in the early 1900s was considered to be an electric vehicle. So it was a significant hit after 1908. Moving forward to 1965, new state and federal regulations made in favor for electric vehicles due to Ralph Nader, an American political activist who questioned the technology that we had for electric vehicles, saying that we could push the step a little further. In 1971, NASA deployed 4 electric-powered lunar rover vehicles to the moon, so that way electric vehicles were no longer in this world, but in space as well. And in 1997, Toyota Prius became the first mass-produced hybrid. Finally, moving into the 21st century, in 2008, Tesla became the first EV to use lithium-ion batteries with 200-mile range. And in 2010, Nissan Leaf became the world's top-selling EV. But of course, we know with the Tesla Model Y and the Tesla Model 3, this could change any year now. And in 2017, Chevy Volt became first affordable long-range EV. Moving on. So now that we know a little bit of history about EVs, let's go ahead and talk about the different types of EVs available. So we have purely electric, plug-in hybrid, and then just your standard hybrid. So moving over to the left column in green, which is electric, we could see that they're fueled by electricity. They have electric motor and a battery, and you plug these into the outlet to get their charge, okay? You can get a federal incentive up to $7,500, but it depends on the make and model of your vehicle. Moving forward to the plug-in hybrids, these are fueled by both gasoline and electricity. Please keep in mind that these have electric motors, batteries, and gasoline engines. You can plug these into the outlet, and you can go to a conventional gas station and fill it up with gasoline if need be. So you can get a federal tax incentive from $3,000 up to $7,500, also depending on your make and model. Finally, we have our hybrid vehicles, which are only fueled by gasoline. Unfortunately, even though they do have an electric motor and battery, you cannot plug these into your wall and get a nice charge from there. They get their charge for their batteries off what we call regenerative braking. They take the kinetic energy from your brakes and convert it into electricity for your battery. So now that you guys know a little brief history about EVs and the different types, we'd like to thank you for this presentation. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to come to our website, epelectric.com/electric vehicles. Or if you look at your right-hand side, there's a Q&A section where you could type in some questions for our panelists. Thank you for your time, guys, and please enjoy the virtual event.
Thank you so much, James. I mean, that is definitely, it was literally a drive-through, but a drive-through through history. And the fact that we could see that electric vehicles outdate our gas vehicles, I mean, I think our historians and those who lived during that time probably would look at us weird and say, why are there so many gas vehicles on the road? And something that Kelly mentioned earlier, that, back when those hybrids, the non-plug-in hybrids, were first invented, and the coolest thing about them was the fact that they didn't make a sound. I know I was definitely one of those, and the fact that all the cool different things that electric vehicles can do now. And something that Kelly mentioned, that her son drives a Prius. So, I'm really surprised by how much power those electric vehicles can have. Both the hybrids, plug-in hybrids, full EVs, those have some serious power. So speaking about all of these different vehicles and all this different power, we actually pulled together a panel so that could talk about all the different types. There's a lot of them, but we pulled in a diverse group of EV and plug-in hybrid owners who are also team members of Paso Electric, who can share their experiences on what it's been like purchasing it, maintaining it, driving it, and what kind of cars that they switch from, which I think is also a really important piece. What kind of car did you trade in or give up in order to switch over to an EV? And you could probably hear that it was an upgrade. So we're actually going to go ahead and turn it over to our very first panelist. And our first panelist here, he's our Assistant Vice President of Transmission, Substation, and Relay. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Mr. Joe Nevares.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joe Nevares. I'm Assistant Vice President of Transmission, Substation, and Relay. I've been with El Paso Electric going on 40 years, and I recently purchased a brand new, it was a 2018 Nissan Leaf. I guess we could talk about how I came about it, and what I was looking for was a new vehicle. I was in the market for a new vehicle, and at the time my commute was 30 miles each way, or 60-mile round trip, and so I was looking at a vehicle that I could commute every day, and I wanted to also help the environment. And at the time, gasoline prices were relatively high. And as I started doing some research, I realized that the state of Texas offered a rebate for an EV purchase, and also there was federal tax credits for purchasing of EVs or other types of vehicles like that. And so I took advantage of that, and I ended up with a 2018 Nissan Leaf.
That's awesome. And you know what? I've noticed those Nissan Leafs, and Joe showed me his at an event that we did last year with Eco El Paso, and it's very sporty. I mean, I've always been a huge fan of hatchbacks, so the fact that they have this Nissan Leaf, and the fact that it's number one right now, and James did mention it could possibly drop down in that list just because the Teslas are creating some great competition, but it's a really cool car. And we actually will come back to some questions with our panel after we have each panelist introduce themselves. So right now we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Brad Green, who is actually the manager of our asset optimization, and he actually drives a different type of vehicle. So we'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Brad Green.
Manager of asset optimization in the renewables department for El Paso Electric, which is part of the corporate business development area. And like Javier mentioned, I drive a 2012 Chevy Volt. I bought it about 4 years ago. It had about 43,000 miles on it when I bought it, used. And it has about 73,000 miles on it now. And anyway, I was looking. Previously I had a 2004 Hyundai, big 6-cylinder gas guzzler that I was using for commuting. I mainly use the Chevy Volt for commuting right now. Well, I was until the pandemic, but it sits in my garage a lot right now because I'm working from home. But anyway, that was I needed to replace that car because it had about 200,000 miles on it, and I had a coworker that had already bought a Chevy Volt, and I was talking with him about it, and he let me test drive it, and I just fell in love with it, with the smoothness of the ride and the power and the torque, and so I ended up buying a 2012 Chevy Volt, and I really like it, love it.
Brad, thank you so much for joining us. I know we have photos of all of our photos. So actually the first set of photos that we have, we're going to just quickly advance through, which are on Joe's Nissan Leaf. So we're just going to just quickly show, and then we can bounce back. And then right here, we jumped right into Brad's vehicle, which I really like because it looks super sleek. I remember my mom telling me about the Chevy Volt when it first came out because she just knew how much I was a fan of hybrid and plug-in cars. And of course, I was a little bit younger then, and I was like, well, you know, that looks like a great car now. But now that they make them super sporty, and so, but now that I'm slightly older, I find that the Chevy Volt is probably right up my alley because it has a lot of space. So I've seen Brad in his Chevy Volt, and I'm a huge fan of the color, Brad. So thanks for sharing. We're going to come back to you with some questions, and we're actually going to turn it over. We're going to turn it over to back to our Tesla 3 car owner, but we're going to be hearing from our supervisor of energy efficiency, Araceli Perea. So, Araceli?
Hello, good afternoon. Yes, my name's Araceli, and I've been with El Paso Electric 12 years, and I drive a Tesla Model 3, dual motor, and I've had it a year and a half now. My previous vehicle was a 2012 Chevy Volt, which was also used, but you couldn't tell. I mean, it ran really fun. It ran nicely, and right with all the comments that Brad made. It was a fun car to drive as well. Thank you.
Awesome, Araceli, and I'm sure people are going to want to hear specifically. I think Tesla gives you some cool options, only because I've looked myself, but it gives you options on like what kind of, you said dual engine, but it can give you some different options on what you can have in it and whatnot. And definitely I want Brad to hold on to that idea, the fact that he bought his vehicle used. So we have that question coming in a little later. But we're going to close out our introductions on our panel discussion here with one of our attorneys here at El Paso Electric, and who is a hybrid owner, Mr. Frank Kinson. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Frank. All right. Not picking up any audio from Frank right now.
I apologize. I muted myself. I'm back.
Okay. There you are, Frank. We can hear you. So if you could just rephrase your thought for us.
Sure. Just a brief self-introduction. I'm an attorney. I've been an attorney for 20-plus years, the last 10-plus with the Electric Company's Office of General Counsel, and I own a 2019 Chrysler Pacifica plug-in hybrid, like the one shown on the picture there.
That's awesome. And you know what? I really like the fact that it's a totally different idea of a vehicle. When we're first thinking of an electric vehicle, probably a lot of people think maybe small, compact, can't really hold a lot of people because maybe it doesn't have the power to hold, right, to transport a whole family. So, and here comes Frank with his minivan, a very cool, sporty-looking minivan. But and honestly, you would never even tell that it's an actual hybrid, plug-in hybrid vehicle. So I really like the fact that he has a totally different car that he could speak to. So thank you all for joining us. And again, as I noted earlier, they're all team members of El Paso Electric, and complete choice on their own, where they have chosen to drive these vehicles. Some have been driving them for years and have developed these experiences. So we're going to be hopping between photos as each panelist addresses each question. So bear with us as we hop between the different PowerPoints. But we're going to jump into our very first question. And, I'm going to actually ask Joe Nevadas, our first panelist, this question, because he mentioned that he drove a different type of car before. And I think in conversations with him, he talked about, he used to drive like a sporty type of car. And when he was making the switch, he was doing it for more, logistical purposes, but then he found the Nissan Leaf and the sports car. So, Joe, the question is, why did you get an electric vehicle in the first place? What was the thought process in needing to change to a different type of vehicle? Joe?
Well, again, as I had mentioned before, I was in the market for a vehicle. I also wanted to help the environment at the time, and gasoline was a little high, and my commute was 60 miles a day. But I found that, yes, I had a Volkswagen CC, which was a sporty car, and I really enjoyed it. It had a turbo engine in it and everything. But I find that this Nissan Leaf is just as peppy as that Volkswagen. So when I purchased it, I was really surprised at how well it drives, how much power it has.
And yeah, I mean, 60 miles a day. On a good day, that's still a chunky commute. So the fact that you are driving a car that is nice to the environment, but also is a really smooth ride. So that's a good reason behind it. I'm going to take it over to Brad and ask him the same question, because he did mention that he drove what he calls a gas guzzler before he switched over to the Chevy Volt. So Brad, what was the reason, I mean, other than the obvious one of the gas guzzler, that made you switch to the Chevy Volt?
Sure. As I mentioned, I had one of my coworkers already had a Chevy Volt, and I really liked the sporty look of the Chevy Volt, and of course, as I mentioned, I was wanting something with better efficiency. And once that I test drove the coworker's Volt, I just fell in love with the way that it accelerates, and it has a lot of torque, and once again the looks of it. So anyway, that's what got me into it. And I wasn't really ready at the time for a full electric vehicle. That was in 2016, I guess, when I bought it. And so I was stepping out a little bit there to get a plug-in hybrid in my view. But I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I wonder who that coworker was that drove that Chevy Volt that gave you some insight.
I wonder who that was.
I'm wondering who that was. And actually, that brings us over to our next panelist, and I'm going to ask you the same question, Araceli. What made you drive? So obviously, you drove the Chevy Volt before. So what made you get the Chevy Volt in the very first place and then stick to that type of vehicle and go full EV? So talk to us about that.
So it wasn't me that Brad's referring to as a coworker. It was a mutual coworker that we have, and we actually that Chevy Volt. It was a 2012, and it was a steal. I mean, actually, it was 2012. I paid $11,000 for it, and that was due because the salespeople here in El Paso didn't know how to market it. They didn't know how to speak on it, and so they had struggled selling it. So it was perfect for me, right? So it worked out. It worked out great. And I was just on the east side of town, so it was just I didn't have to travel anywhere like Brad. Brad had to go to Dallas for his, but so yeah, it was very convenient, perfect timing. And I didn't have all the errands that I used to run, so that Chevy Volt was perfect for me. I have a 17-mile commute to work, and I would tell people I probably paid $12 in gasoline every 3 months. And so, because I was always on it has a 40-mile range, and so it was perfect for me. So I was actually content with the Chevy Volt, but then the Tesla came around that we did put in our deposit for that, and I had to wait for the Tesla. But yeah, I was really happy with the Chevy Volt. So, so I'm not sure.
That $12 every 3 months? My gosh.
Right, yeah, people think I'm going to say $12 every 2 weeks or something, but it's actually like every 3 months. And it all depends, right? If I ran an errand, but still, I mean, that car has a 375-mile range on it, the Chevy Volt.
Wow. Yeah, and like I mentioned, the Chevy Volts, they have a lot of space in them. I mean, it's a very spacious vehicle, so that's really cool. And I can't blame you when those Teslas came out. I mean, they definitely, I have my eyes on them, so I don't blame you for putting in an early deposit on a Tesla when that came out. For this next question, and by the way, like James mentioned, who presented on the history of EVs, if you all have questions, definitely send them. I'm taking a look at them here, and I have one question that came in. I'm going to ask it a little later. And someone also mentioned that it's dual motor, not dual engine on the EVs. EVs don't have engines. That's a good point. Absolutely. The maintenance, that's what makes the maintenance on these EVs so much nicer, especially for busy people with families, and you got priorities and whatnot. But there's this one question. I'm going to turn it over to Frank on this one. And the question is, why did you end up choosing a plug-in hybrid instead of a full EV? What was your choice on making that? And did you feel like you had a choice, or were you kind of locked into it? So walk us to your thought process on purchasing your vehicle, Frank.
Well, my thought process was that I wanted a vehicle that would be functional. I had been shopping the EV market for some time, and I think as you pointed out, Javier, a lot of the EV vehicles are sedans, and some of them had a lot of buttons that kids could accidentally press while you're driving, and I needed something that could, comfortably move myself and all four of my kids. But as far as why not go pure EV, I'm not sure that option existed, but I also like the flexibility that I have. The vehicle can function entirely electric or entirely gas engine, so I don't have to look for charging stations. The year I bought it, I took a trip out to California with my kids, and some of the places that we stayed didn't have very good parking, and there certainly wasn't EV parking for the vehicle, but I was never worried about getting stranded because I couldn't recharge. I could just go to a gas station just like you would with a regular vehicle, but at the same time, for my commute, when I can charge it regularly, I can do that entirely on electric power. I got 1,000 miles on my first tank of gas when I got the vehicle.
I mean, I know we're in the day and age where people like to take pictures of everything and take pictures of their food, take pictures of getting the mail. You're going to have to take a picture of your mileage so that way we could test you on that one. No, but I completely believe you because here at Paso Electric, we actually have some hybrids too, and I'm really surprised. I mean, we're busy sometimes where we're like, oh yeah, well, make sure that the car has gas, but one of our vehicles is a hybrid, so it always has gas. So I believe you on that one. Actually, I'm going to turn it over to our CEO, Kelly. Hey, Kelly, can you tell us again, give us your thought process on, I mean, the Tesla, I think, is an obvious choice because it's beautiful, but what made you go EV in the first place? Talk to us about that.
Well, I've been in this industry for a long time, 30 years, so I believe it's sort of my responsibility to do everything I can to both utilize the grid, and we all know this, we built a grid, and sometimes it's not being utilized. So I wanted to be able to contribute to that. I consider myself a big environmentalist. I wanted to contribute to that as well. So in 2004, when the hybrid came out, I wanted that hybrid. And then when I moved to Jamaica, I worked for a Japanese company. So we had the dual, and I'm going to say it right, motor, right? Yes. Mitsubishi, which is also hard for me to say, and I loved it. And then when I came back to the U.S., I was in Chicago, and my office was out in the middle of farmland. And I thought, I'm scared to get anything that doesn't have a long range, but I was worried about the snow. So I've always knew I wanted the most environmentally friendly vehicle, but after I came back and I was out in the middle of the farm and I was afraid there'd be no chargers in the snow, I was a little concerned, but I traded in a Highlander, a Toyota, and my Tesla went better in the snow. I think it's the weight. So I think it just took me a little bit to get over that, I need a big car, I need a big truck because I'm in the snow, because I'm into this, and I need to go far. And so when the range became significant, but more than that, I just took a risk on it to be able to go in the snow, and it went great in the snow. So it looks like a little car, but because of the weight, it goes very well. So I always wanted it. I just had to have a little courage that would go in the snow to give up my other vehicles. So I've loved it, but it was really the incentive just to take advantage of what we paid for and to help the environment. And now this is so much fun to drive. It's hard to go back. Now that I live here, my son wants a truck. He thinks he has to have a truck. So I have to find an EV truck. So that's where I am now, Javier. But I see there's a lot coming out in the truck arena that they say is worth waiting on. So I'm going to try to hold them off until they're here.
Yeah. And let me tell you, as someone who used to drive a truck, me here, I've learned that trucks versus SUV is just so much more practical, and there are so many options when it comes to EVs and hybrids. Question: I'm gonna stick with you, Kelly, on this next question, and it's come up from our attendees here on our event today. Is about charging infrastructure, and I know that is definitely something people think about. I used to live in an apartment complex, and there are no charging stations at apartments, and so I'm always aware of that, and I'm sure people who are on the market who already have one think about this. And considering you've lived in different areas of the country, talk to us about your experiences finding charging infrastructure. Have you found resources that help you? And how about, I mean, your EV is not here yet, but just thinking about that, what have your experiences been like?
And I mentioned my car plugs into the house, just a typical outlet, right? So that's really convenient. And I'd come home from work and just plug it in the garage, and it got charged. So I was a little scared because really and truly, I know some of you saw me at my old company. It was in a farm field. I mean, you saw corn outside my house. But what I'm excited about is that there is a real push now to get infrastructure and adapters that fit all vehicles. And I'm finding so much more, even out in the boonies and in apartment complexes and parking buildings, in airports, and certainly in my airport at O'Hara in Chicago, there are stations. So my husband is driving my car, as I mentioned, from Chicago to here. And the good news is, at least I know Tesla just maps it out for you and tells you where you have to go. During COVID, when I couldn't fly, I had to go to a lot of places because I had to drive, and I hadn't been used to doing that because I had offices from California to Baltimore. And I would find charging stations. And there's a lot sometimes that are not on the mapping, at least for Tesla, that you can utilize. So I think that there's more to do, Javier. And I know that we're creating a plan right now to make sure there are, but I'm always surprised that they're at the number of charging stations that are available throughout the country. There's some areas that need some work, and I know we're working in our area to make sure that we just inundate our region with charging stations. So you'll hear more about that. But all in all, I've been surprised how easy it is for me to get around the country with an electric vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that is definitely something there's been an increase in charging infrastructure, which is great, but definitely there are pockets that still need some help. And, you know, coming from one of our attendees here, there are areas that we have people who commute to a lot, you know, whether it's for vacation or it's because you live further away and you're traveling for work. So people can live in Las Cruces, you travel to El Paso, or you vacation out in Rio Doce or TRC, or you want to go down to Marfa. And so kind of thinking about these links and charging infrastructure, I'm going to switch it over to Joe, because Joe, he mentioned he has a commute of 60 miles. And that's for work. So he's doing this daily. And I know a lot of us are working from home today, but that day that we get to go back to work, thinking about that commute. Joe, talk to us about your charging infrastructure. How do you charge? Is it only at home? Do you charge out in the public? What are those experiences like that for you and your Nissan Leaf?
Well, my vehicle has a 160-mile range, and so I can drive to and from work several times before I have to charge. And so I invested in a level 2 charger for my garage, and so I charge that one at nights, and then I'm good for at least a couple more days of driving back and forth to work. So that's what I use. There's also charging stations like at the Fountains of Farah. If I'm there shopping, you can plug in your vehicle there and charge it for free. And so when I'm shopping, I can go there and charge up my vehicle. And then also, if I'm over here at the supermarket, there's a charging station there. So when I'm grocery shopping, I can charge there. But mainly, I charge at home.
Real quick question, Joe. How much is the level 2 charger? Just so that way, those of us who are curious and buying it know.
Well, the combined cost, because I had to have electrical work done, was in the neighborhood of $800 to $900. But to me, it's an investment because I plan on having an EV from now on. I fell in love with the way they drive, and I don't see myself as not having one going forward.
Yeah, that's a really interesting word to use when describing your vehicle, right? I mean, my mom has always told me, your car is not an investment. The moment you drive that car off the car lot, when you even buying it brand new, it goes down in value. And a lot of us try to think of it as an investment because we spend so much money into this vehicle, right? But she's right. We lose investment. But when we're doing actions like investing in a level 2, putting a separate meter so you could take advantage of the lower rate that we have for EV chargers here at El Paso Electric, all those are investments, and making an investment to help be environmentally friendly. Those are all definitely sound investments. And so that's an interesting word to use, especially when it comes to describing our vehicle. We had another very quick question, and actually something I don't know the answer to. So maybe either Brad or Frank could help us out with this one because, I think Brad actually, because you bought your Chevy Volt used. The question is, are there incentives, or can you still qualify for an incentive or a rebate if you purchased an EV or plug-in hybrid used, or does it have to be new to take advantage of those?
Yeah, normally it has to be new because if you buy a used one, then normally someone else has already taken the investment tax credit on that. So if you buy a used one, then there's not there's no federal investment tax credit available for that. Okay.
Yeah, and that's good. That's a good point. I mean, number one, I think both you and Araceli made it clear that new and used, or the used vehicles, are still good quality vehicles, which is great to hear. And the fact that you still drive yours, that's awesome. But I've purchased a used car and I don't drive it anymore because it wasn't a good car and it was a regular gasoline car, which actually leads me to the next question. I'm going to stick with you, Brad. In terms of maintenance, what's the maintenance like for your vehicle? One of our participants would like to know what that's like.
Yeah, it's very low because, for me, I have a 15-mile round-trip commute, and the Volt has a 35 to 40-mile range on the battery. And so I very seldom, I'm kind of like Araceli, very seldom visit the gas station. And so but one thing on the maintenance, the oil changes are few and far between because of that. As a matter of fact, the computer on the car, if you don't use the engine mode very often, then the computer will sense, how often you've used that, and it will require the gasoline engine to run for a few minutes, every so often, just to make sure that the engine stays lubricated. And then the braking system, I've had mine's a 2012 Chevy Volt. I bought it in 16, so it's 8 years old. And I just recently had to replace the 12-volt battery. It has a 12-volt battery as well as the high-voltage battery. But I just recently had to replace the 12-volt battery, after 8 years. And that's unheard of, in a normal gasoline engine car. And then the brakes, because the electric vehicles, the electric motor assists the braking, then there's a lot less wear and tear on the braking components. So I've got 73,000 miles on my Volt, and I don't see any need. The brakes are fine. I've noticed the other coworker we've been talking about that has the Volt, he has over 100,000 miles on his Volt now, and I don't think he's had to change, work on the brakes at all. So the maintenance, there's just fewer moving parts, in the electric vehicle, so the maintenance is lower.
And that the length. So basically, when you have a plug-in hybrid vehicle, it has the traditional parts that a gasoline vehicle has, and then of course it has the electrical work for the EV. And essentially, what I'm taking away from what you just mentioned is that those traditional pieces to your vehicle last longer than what a typical gasoline vehicle. You got less oil changes, better braking system, plus a longer lasting braking system and a longer lasting battery. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's really great. And actually, I'm going to transition over to Kelly and Araceli. Both of you all drive the same type of car, but I know EVs typically, full EVs have less maintenance. But I think something a lot of people think about is that since we don't have a Tesla vendor or someone like a Tesla car dealership here in El Paso or in the local area, have you had any issues, especially Araceli, since you've had your Tesla here in the El Paso area? Have you had any issues trying to get someone who's Tesla experienced or EV experienced looking at your car, if that's the case?
No, I haven't had any issues. I did have, when I purchased it, the headliner was loose a little bit, caused some vibration. But back when I got it, there wasn't a service center here in town, and they would actually come to your home. And then you would set up the appointment through your cell phone app, and they would come to your to your home. But now they do have a service center, and it's on the east side of town. So Kelly. And but sometimes they still come to your home, depending on what it is. But yes, you just set it up on your cell phone, set your appointment time, and right now with COVID, I did take it for tire rotation because I have over 25,000 miles on my vehicle, and they have you set up, and it's just a scan. There's social distance, and they'll take your car and you just wait. I mean, it's very safe right now to do that, but those are the only times I've taken it.
I have never seen the Tesla person. I didn't rotate my tires. Thank you for reminding me. Supposed to rotate tires? You're supposed to rotate tires? Wait a minute. It was so bizarre to me to buy this car after having bought cars for many years because, first of all, I, like you, waited our side for whatever year or whatever. I thought it was a joke after a while. It's not really coming. They'd ask, for some money. I said, oh, it's a joke. It's okay. But it did. But you think how you buy this car. You just get on an app and you pick out colors. And I said this earlier. It was so bizarre to me. And then you go into a queue. Then they call you and say your car's ready. And they drove it to my office. And literally, I'm telling you, look up Union, Illinois. It's out in the boonies. And they drove it to my office. And for whatever reason, my check hadn't come from the bank or something. And they just handed me the vehicle. Like I signed one little piece I signed a thing. And they handed me the vehicle. And I think a lot of you know the phone is your car key. For the most part, you have some what I call backup credit card things that are supposed to be your key, but your app has everything to you. So I've never seen a Tesla person since then. They dropped it off. I didn't have a check. I got it to them. I don't even remember how, and I haven't seen them yet. I have to go get my tires rotated. I'm glad I was on this.
Right.
But it's like they were non-existent always. I just filled out an app. I told them I would pay for it. They came and gave me a car. It really was new agey. And then they talk to me through the app. If some new thing is happening and I want to download the next thing, and they just say, a new upgrade's available, you want to download it, and you push yes, and it magically comes. It feels very out of the future, right. Back to the future for me now. But it's like they're non-existent, really.
Yeah, I think from plug-in hybrids where it has both worlds, but everything lasts longer, which sounds great. And then you got EVs, which is virtually nothing, and everything's all done through your phone. It's really awesome. And a couple of other comments came in about, how the cost of EVs, and one of our participants mentioned that newer EVs already come with the charger, the advanced charger that it comes with. So I know, I think Joe mentioned that he had to purchase one, but a lot of the newer ones already come with it. And the 240 volt outlet, you can get an electrician who can install it for you as well. So there's a lot of great information. And I know that we definitely have more questions coming in. Again, we're going to transition to the next part of our presentation. So if you have questions out there that maybe we didn't get to, email us again at EV, so it stands for electric vehicle, of course, EV@epelectric.com. And we're actually going to take those questions and we're going to answer them on our website, which is at epelectric.com/EV, where it's a wealth of information. If you haven't checked it out, be sure to check it out, bookmark it, save it, and it'll become a resource to you. And again, thank you to all of our panelists for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Kelly, for stepping in and giving us some other insight. But we're going to go ahead and transition over to our test drives. And so right now we have our other team member, Tony Reyes, who is one of our engineers in the Renewable and Emerging Technologies Department, who will walk us through a test drive of the Chevy Volt. Again, that was Tony with our Renewable and Emerging Technologies Department. Thank you so much, Tony. We really appreciate it. And that was a Chevy Volt, as you all saw. We're going to jump over to a full EV, and we're going to jump over to Angie Rodriguez, who is our other team member in the Emerging Technologies Department. So, Angie, we'll take it over to you and your Tesla 3.
Hi, my name is Angie Rodriguez, and I'm a proud owner of federal, state, and local incentives that may help you reduce the
All right. Thank you so much, Angie. And hopefully everyone got to learn a few things about EVs. And for those of you who may have had some audio issues, we do apologize. We will be posting these videos on our EV website. So again, that's epelectric.com/EV. EV, and the email is just theflipev@epelectric.com. So we'll post those for you all to watch and continue to send your questions, and we'll be sure to answer them as well. We're going to go ahead and pass it on over to Mr. Ryan Polk, who is our Director of Support Services, who heads also our fleet, and we'll be talking about what the company is doing to electrify our fleet. So Ryan, off to you.
Thanks, Javier. I'll try to go fairly quick because I know we're pressed for time. So basically, just to start it off, give a little bit of information about the size of El Paso Electric's fleet. We basically have 430 licensed vehicles. Of that, 123 are construction units, which would be cranes, large buckets. We have 82 vocational units. Those are going to be service buckets, stake beds. And the remaining 225 would be SUVs, light-duty pickup trucks, and sedans. So currently, of those 430 vehicles, 29 of them are electric vehicles. We have 8 all-EVs, some plug-in hybrids, non-plug-in hybrids, and some EPTOs, which stands for electric power takeoff, which I'll explain in more detail here a little later, which currently makes up 7% of our total fleet, but that number is growing every year. So here's a few pictures of some of our vehicles. One of them is the Chevy Bolt on the top, and the other is a plug-in hybrid, the Ford Fusion, that are wrapped nicely with detail that let everybody know when you see the vehicle out in the streets that it's powered by electricity. And then here's a picture of our Chevy Bolt at our Eastside Operations Center, charging on one of our charge point level 2 charging stations. We've installed multiple charging stations throughout our reporting locations to support the electric vehicles that we have. Okay, and then here's a picture of our service buckets that have what I mentioned earlier, an EPTO, an electric power takeoff, which basically means that the aerial equipment and the tools and some of the cabin comfort can be run from a battery, which reduces the carbon emissions and then reduces noise pollution and exhaust fumes as well. And currently we have 14 of these vehicles, with more on order coming here in the next few months. Okay, so future plans, we talk about in 2025 replacing all of our transportation units, as I mentioned earlier, sedans, light-duty pickup trucks, and SUVs with fully electric vehicles. And by that point in time, we'll have all of our service buckets will be EPTO equipped by 2025 as well. And we're currently working on plans and strategies to deploy the charging infrastructure to meet the growing need. Our largest vehicle class that we have in our fleet mix is a light-duty truck. We have about 130 of those. And to Kelly's comment earlier, we're anxiously awaiting the major manufacturers to come out with a light-duty all-EV truck, so we can really start getting into increasing those EV numbers for our fleet. So that's it.
Thank you so much, Ryan. Yeah, I think this is really important for our community to know that as much as we're pushing our electric vehicle initiative, not just regionally, but really partnering with the industry and with other utilities, that this is an important initiative, because this is really just the trend is naturally going to go, that we are also doing that here at the company as well. So as I mentioned, I get the opportunity to drive one of our hybrids as well, and I'm always impressed by how far our gas tank goes, especially when we're traveling from downtown El Paso to our other office in Las Cruces. So it's really great. So thank you so much, Ryan, for sharing this insight. If you all have questions about what we're doing to further our initiative, of course, you can send those questions over, and we'll be sure to connect with Ryan and get you, our subject matter expert, the most insight that we can possibly get. Again, you all, we are just so excited that you all joined us as one of our highlight events for our celebration of National Drive EV Week, are done in partnership with Plug in America, and we are extremely motivated and completely driven by this innovation that has definitely come our way. And as James mentioned, EVs are not a new thing, but it's definitely the trendiest thing to do right now, right? So we want to just, again, thank you all and quickly mention that we are also launching our EV community. So I mentioned it at the top of our event today. The EV community is a place where if you are a car owner of a plug-in hybrid, a hybrid, or a full electric vehicle, you can connect with other like-minded individuals who drive these types of vehicles and connect with one another. You'll be receiving a quarterly newsletter that will actually be launching today. And so if you've already signed up, you'll be getting the very first newsletter today sent out to your email, and it's going to have cool information, and each issue will have different topics like debunking old misperceptions like Angie did in her video. We're also going to be talking about charging infrastructure, since that's growing every day, incentives and rebates that you can take advantage of if you're looking at other vehicles. And also you can share this newsletter with anyone else who may be thinking about buying an EV and they're just on that tittering point, and then this can definitely help you show that an EV is definitely a way to go. And we also want to mention that we have a new local chapter of the National Electric Auto Association called the Rio Grande Electric Auto Association. So if you have an EV or a plug-in hybrid, definitely join that local chapter. It's brand new, and it's another great way to connect with different people and also learn about how you could fully take advantage of your electric vehicle, because our cars are like smartphones now. You could definitely use it just more for than just driving. Thank you all so much. We want to do a huge shout out to Kelly, our new CEO, for joining us, and our panelists, and James for that quick drive-through of EV on EVs. And we're going to be posting all of those questions that you sent us on our website at epelectric.com/EV, and continue to communicate with us at ev@epelectric.com. Continue to share it. Follow us on social media at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our LinkedIn profile as well. And stay connected, drive safely, and enjoy. Be healthy. We'll take care. Thank you all. Bye.